It was a quiet Saturday morning. Sunlight streaming through Ethan's kitchen window, the smell of coffee in the air. Max, his loyal German shepherd, lay by the door half asleep. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt peace. After 20 years of police service, retirement had been both strange and beautiful. Simple days, quiet mornings, and the loyal companionship of a dog who had once served beside him. Then came a sharp knock, not hesitant, but authoritative. The kind that instantly changes the air in the room. When Ethan opened the door, a man in a faded blue uniform stood there. His badge looked off, a shiny laminate, no seal, no weight to it. The patch read, Community Compliance Unit, a title Ethan had never heard. The man didn't smile. Sir, we've received a complaint about an unregistered animal on your property. You'll need to surrender the dog. Ethan blinked. Unregistered animal? He wasn't even part of an HOA. Max rose quietly, moving between Ethan and the stranger. The man's hand twitched near his belt, fingers brushing a walkie-talkie. The man reached toward Max's leash, like he had every right in the world to take him. Max's growl rolled out low, steady, the kind of warning that froze blood. Ethan raised a calming hand, but his eyes never left the man's fake badge. The officer didn't back away. Your dog is classified as a guard animal, sir. That's a violation of HOA Regulation 7A and 9C. Ethan frowned. He had no HOA, no record, no notice. This man was bluffing. Show me your credentials. The man hesitated, just for a second. Then his tone hardened. I don't have to. You can check with the HOA board. Something inside Ethan, that old trained instinct, switched on. The stance, the steady breath, the silent observation. Every detail clicked into focus. Wrong badge font, the cheap belt radio, the mismatched boots. Ethan crossed his arms. You've got 10 seconds to tell me who you really work for, the man glared. You're making a mistake. Max's collar light blinked red. The hidden camera inside it had just started recording. The tension thickened. Ethan didn't move. Neither did Max. The man took a step closer, overconfident. Hand him over now or I'll call in backup. Ethan's voice was calm but deadly steady. Go ahead. Then slowly he reached inside his jacket and pulled out his own badge. Real, heavy, polished from years of service. The sunlight hit the engraved shield of the state police department. The fake officer froze mid-step. His face drained. Ethan's tone dropped lower. Now, let's talk about impersonating an officer and attempted theft of a service animal. For a split second, the man's fake confidence collapsed. Then, panic. He spun on his heel and bolted down the driveway. Ethan shouted, Max, stay! And sprinted after him. The man dove into a white van with no plates, engine roaring to life as it sped away. Gravel sprayed as Ethan stopped at the curb, heart pounding. The van disappeared down the street, but Ethan caught something. A crude decal on the side, Community Enforcement Unit, and a half-torn phone number. He memorized the last 4 digits, years of training making his brain record every detail. When he turned around, several neighbors were peeking through curtains, but one stood openly outside. Karen, the self-appointed neighborhood coordinator. Karen smirked. Everything all right, Ethan? You and that. Big dog of yours causing trouble again? Ethan's jaw clenched. You know anything about that van? She shrugged. Maybe the HOA's just trying to keep things peaceful. Ethan's pulse sharpened. There's no HOA here, Karen. Karen's smirk only deepened. There is now. She turned her phone toward him, a picture of Max on her HOA complaint app labeled Potentially Dangerous Animal. Ethan's calm cracked for the first time. You filed this? Karen crossed her arms, voice sugary. We've had concerns. He's huge, barks at everyone, and looks like one of those police dogs. People feel unsafe. Ethan's tone was ice. He is a police dog, retired. He's trained to protect. Karen laughed. Oh, that's cute. You should have gotten a license before bringing something like that here. Max barked once, deep and commanding. Karen flinched, then forced a smile. Well, I'm sure our HOA enforcement team will sort it out soon. "You're what?" Ethan asked. Karen's grin faltered for the first time. "It's a private team. They help with compliance. You'll see." She walked away, and Ethan noticed she was secretly recording him on her phone. That night, Ethan sat in his study surrounded by old police files, laptop open. His fingers moved fast, searching the name on that van. Community Enforcement Unit. Nothing legitimate. No license, no registration. He dug deeper, tracing the partial phone number through databases only cops had access to. A match popped up, linked to a private security group recently investigated for fraud and impersonation. Ethan leaned back, cold fury in his eyes. So Karen wasn't bluffing. She'd hired them. Then outside, Max stood suddenly, ears up, growling toward the backyard. Ethan froze, hand moving instinctively toward the holster on his desk. He turned off the lights and peered through the blinds. The motion light over the gate flickered once, twice, then went dark. A shadow moved behind the fence. Someone was cutting the lock. The faint clink of metal against metal cut through the silence. Ethan's breath slowed. Years of training returned in an instant. He grabbed his flashlight, weapon holstered, and motioned for Max to stay low. The dog's body went tense, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the fence. Ethan stepped outside quietly, the cool night air heavy with tension. He scanned the perimeter until a glint of steel flashed. Someone was crouched at his back gate, bolt cutters in hand. Police! "Step away from the gate!" The man jerked upright. It was the same fake officer from earlier. He froze, then dropped the cutters and sprinted into the darkness. Ethan started after him, but Max barked sharply, signaling something. Ethan looked down. On the ground near the fence, something white fluttered. He picked it up, an HOA meeting invitation with his own address circled in red marker. The next morning, Ethan walked into the HOA special session, his hat pulled low. The meeting was in Karen's oversized garage, decked with folding chairs and a projector screen. Karen stood at the front, pretending authority, reading from a binder. "We're here to address continued safety violations. The primary concern, aggressive animals in the neighborhood." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ethan stayed at the back, listening. Then the screen flickered, showing photos of Max on neighborhood lawns, cropped to look menacing. And across each photo, stamped in red text, "Remove." Karen's voice softened. "We have a duty to protect our families." Ethan's jaw clenched. He stepped forward, removing his hat. "You sure about that, Karen?" Gasps filled the room. Karen froze mid-sentence, color draining from her face. The crowd turned, and Ethan's badge glinted faintly in the light. Karen stuttered. You weren't invited, Ethan." "I know," he said calmly. "I came to make sure no one else gets hurt by your fake enforcement unit," some neighbors whispered. One man asked, "Fake enforcement?" Ethan pointed to the screen. "These photos, these operations, all illegal. You've hired unlicensed men pretending to be officers. You're breaking multiple state laws." Karen tried to regain control. "That's ridiculous. I was told," Ethan interrupted. "Told by who? The man who tried to kidnap my dog?" The room went dead silent. Karen's lips trembled. From the back of the room, an HOA board member muttered, "He wasn't supposed to find out this fast." Ethan stayed calm, but his pulse thundered. "What do you mean, this fast?" The man avoided eye contact. "We just thought we were hiring security." Ethan slammed a folder down on the table. Inside, a printed copy of the private contractor's record. "This company's under state investigation for fraud. And Karen, guess whose name's on the payment authorization?" He turned a page, revealing her digital signature. Karen's voice shook. I didn't know," Ethan leaned in. "You knew enough to send someone to my home." "That's a felony." The projector light flickered across her pale face. From outside, tires screeched. That same van had just pulled up to the curb. Ethan rushed outside, motioning for the others to stay back. The white van idled near the curb, engine humming like a threat. The driver, the fake officer, stepped out, smirking. "You don't scare me, old man. HOA's got my back." Ethan's eyes were ice. "No, but the law will." He pressed a button on his key fob, activating his home's security system remotely. Cameras whirred to life, sensors linked to his phone. Karen shouted from behind, "Stop this before someone gets hurt!" The fake officer ignored her, walking toward Ethan. Ethan's phone buzzed. Live feed from his front yard camera showed two more men approaching his property. Ethan's mind clicked into tactical mode. He spoke calmly to the crowd behind him. "Nobody move. And call the real police." He turned to the fake officer. "You picked the wrong home." Within seconds, two of Ethan's old colleagues, responding to his earlier tip, rolled up in unmarked vehicles. The men in the van froze as badges flashed and hands reached for cuffs. Karen's gasp broke the silence. "Oh my God, they're real?" Ethan looked at her, eyes steady. "They've always been real, just like your lies." The fake officer tried to run, but Max lunged forward, barking commandingly. The man froze, hands up. As the officers pulled the impostors away, one whispered to Ethan, "You'll want to see what's in their van." The police flashlights cut through the night as officers opened the van doors. Ethan's breath misted in the cold air. The metallic scent of oil and paper filled the air. Inside lay a mobile command setup, clipboards, tablets, printed citations, and false warrants, all branded with an official-looking HOA seal. One of the officers whistled under his breath. "They've been running operations right out of here." Ethan's eyes darted to a large binder on the seat. It was labeled Resident Violation Targets, Confidential. He flipped it open, and instantly his jaw tightened. There were names of homeowners from his street, complete with photos, schedules, and violation histories. Karen, standing behind him, looked pale. This can't be real." Ethan turned the page and froze. There it was, his address. Pictures of his backyard. A note. "Subject owns trained canine. Remove under animal control pretext. Resistance likely?" His hand trembled for a second. Then cold steel entered his voice. "They didn't just plan to take my dog. They planned to stage it as legal." He flips to the last page and sees a line that reads, "Authorized by HOA Chair, Karen W." Karen's knees nearly gave out. "No, I never signed that." "That's not my signature!" Ethan held the paper steady under the flashlight. The signature looked real, fluid, confident, official, but he could see it now. The pressure pattern didn't match human flow. It was a digital stamp. "They forged your approval," he said quietly. "Used your name to legitimize their scheme." Her voice shook. "But why me?" "Because you're the perfect cover," Ethan said. "You're the HOA's face. They needed you to make their racket look clean." Karen's hands trembled. "Then who's actually running this?" Ethan looked up at the van's roof, dozens of fake badges and IDs pinned like trophies. "Whoever they are, they've been doing this for a while." And just as he said that, one of the officers yelled, "Sir, there's another binder under the floorboard." Ethan grabbed it, opened it, and his stomach sank. It was titled, "Priority Target, Ethan Cole and K9 Unit, File 9A. Inside were timestamps of his movements, his work shifts, and even his off-duty routes. Ethan slammed the binder shut and whispered, "They've been watching me for months." Hours later, the van was impounded. But Ethan's mind wouldn't rest. He sat in his truck across from the HOA office. Inside, faint light spilled through the blinds. Through binoculars, he spotted Brent, Karen's vice president, pacing and talking to someone. A tall man with a shaved head and dark jacket. The man was handing over an envelope. Brent looked nervous, kept glancing outside. Ethan's instincts screamed. He zoomed in through the glass. Inside the envelope, bundles of cash and official HOA letterhead. He hit record on his dash cam, whispering, "This isn't just corruption. It's a partnership." The man took the envelope, smiled faintly, and tapped something on his phone. Moments later, Ethan's phone buzzed. An anonymous message flashed. "You're being watched too, Marshal." Ethan froze. He hadn't told anyone his real job title yet. He looked up and saw a small, blinking red light in the tree across the street. A camera lens pointed straight at him. Ethan stepped out quietly, scanning the area. Max tensed beside him, growling low. The neighborhood was dead silent. No wind, no motion. Then a noise. Faint footsteps behind the truck. A figure lunged from the shadows, swinging a metal crowbar at the window. Crack! Glass shattered. Ethan dodged, rolled, and shouted, "Max! Down!" But Max ignored it. He leapt at the attacker, pinning him to the ground with a snarl. The man screamed, "Call him off!" "Call him off!" Ethan pressed his gun to the man's back. "You're lucky he listens better than your boss." He cuffed the man, pulling off his hood. It was one of the fake officers from earlier. And in his pocket, another counterfeit police badge, this one identical to Ethan's. Ethan's stomach dropped. "This isn't an HOA scheme anymore," he muttered. "Someone's running an inside job, with stolen law enforcement IDs. As sirens approached, the attacker smirked through a bloody lip. "You really think you can stop this, Marshal? It started years before you moved here. The next morning, the sun rose over the cul-de-sac as a fleet of marked police vehicles rolled in, a coordinated operation. Ethan stood in tactical gear, side by side with officers he trusted. Karen, pale but resolute, waited nearby. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. He nodded. "It's time we see who's really behind the curtain." The raid began. Doors kicked open, paper flying, computer drives seized. Brent screamed about legal rights and community privacy, but his voice drowned under the sound of boots and radios. An officer called out, "We found cash ledgers and encrypted files, hundreds of thousands in fines collected under fake HOA names." Karen broke down, whispering, "They were using our signatures to extort people." Ethan turned to Brent, who was being cuffed. "You tried to use my badge against me," Ethan said coldly. "Now you'll see what it really stands for." Another officer approached Ethan, holding up a USB drive. "Sir, you'll want to see this. There's a list, hundreds of HOAs connected to the same shell company." Ethan plugged the USB into a secure laptop. The screen filled with data, names, addresses, bank accounts, all linked to a corporate entity called Community Integrity Management, LLC. It wasn't local. It was nationwide. Karen covered her mouth. "Oh my God. They've been doing this everywhere." Ethan's tone hardened. "A fake HOA enforcement company. They build trust, impersonate authority, then drain homeowners through bogus citations." The police chief looked up from the screen. "We're contacting the state and the feds. This goes beyond our jurisdiction." Ethan exhaled slowly, hand resting on Max's head. "Good. Let's end it everywhere." Max barked once, sharp and alert, the sound echoing in the quiet office. Karen turned to Ethan. "You saved my life, and probably hundreds of others." Ethan gave a faint, tired smile. "No, Max did. He's the one who never stopped watching." Ethan's phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "You shut one down, but the next board meets tomorrow. You can't save them all." Ethan sat in his office the next morning, the case files spread across his desk. The investigation was expanding, but so was the retaliation. He received an unmarked envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Max, taken from his own backyard the night before. His blood ran cold. He rushed outside, scanning every tree, every parked car. Nothing. Silence. Then his phone buzzed again, a voice message this time. "Back off, Marshal. You've already taken one group down. The next one won't be so merciful." Ethan clenched his jaw. "They're watching again," Karen called moments later, panicked. "They followed me too. Someone's been sitting outside my house for hours." Ethan's voice dropped. "Stay inside. I'm on my way." As he walked toward his truck, he noticed something chilling. One of his security cameras had been turned, its lens now pointing away from the driveway. Ethan rewound his home surveillance system. The screen flickered. A faint figure appeared at 2:14 a.m. The man wore a maintenance vest, face hidden. He reached up, twisted the camera, and turned to leave. But for a split second, the man looked directly into the lens. Ethan froze. He knew that face. It was Officer Keller, one of the local cops who had helped during the initial raid. He played the clip again. No mistake. Keller was in uniform. So now it wasn't just fake officers. It was corrupted ones. Ethan muttered under his breath. This runs deeper than anyone thought. He opened his drawer and pulled out Max's vest. K-9 unit, active duty. Ready to go back to work, partner? Max's ears perked up instantly. As Ethan grabbed his badge and headed out, his tablet lit up with a motion alert. Someone was inside his garage. Ethan moved quietly through the shadows, tablet in hand. On the screen, he saw the intruder creeping toward the shelves, the same spot where Ethan kept his evidence files. He pressed a button on the app labeled Lockdown. The garage doors sealed automatically with a loud thud. Inside, the man spun in panic, yanking at the door. Ethan flicked on the lights, revealing the face of Keller, the crooked cop. Keller's eyes widened. "You can't arrest me. This is a setup." Ethan stepped forward, calm but deadly serious. "You're right," he said. "This isn't an arrest. This is a confession in progress." Every camera in the garage blinked red. Keller froze. "You're live streaming this?" he stammered. Ethan nodded slowly. "To every precinct and state channel in the county." Keller dropped his weapon, but then smirked. "You think you got the worst of us? Wait till you see who signs my paycheck. At the precinct..." Keller's interrogation exposed the name behind the entire network. Harold Stenton, a retired city attorney turned HOA compliance consultant. He used fake HOAs to funnel money through shell companies and had bribed low-level law enforcement for protection. Ethan leaned over the table. "You really want to spend your retirement running scams?" Keller's lips twitched. "You don't get it, Marshal. Stenton built this. Everyone answers to him, even your chief." Ethan frowned. "You're lying," Keller laughed. "Check your messages." Ethan's phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. "You're off the case. Orders from above." Ethan looked up at the two-way mirror and saw the chief watching him, expressionless. Ethan stormed into the chief's office. "You told me to investigate this. Now you're shutting it down?" The chief sighed. "Ethan, this goes way higher than us. Drop it. It's political now." "Political?" Ethan snapped. "They tried to kidnap my dog under your badge." The chief's eyes flickered with guilt. "You don't understand who Stenton has in his pocket." "I understand perfectly," Ethan said, standing tall. "That's why I don't answer to him. I answer to the badge." Without another word, he tossed his phone onto the desk, the one still streaming evidence from Keller's confession. The chief's face paled. "You didn't—" "Oh, I did," Ethan said. "And now it's not just my case. It's public record." At that exact moment, the chief's office window shattered, a bullet embedding in the wall beside Ethan's head. Night fell again. The operation to capture Stenton was underway. Federal agents surrounded his lakefront mansion, lights off, comms silent. Ethan crouched beside Max, whispering, "Quiet this time, buddy. No heroics till I say so." Inside, Stenton was pacing, phone in hand. His voice carried through the walls. "Tell the others to shut down everything. Burn the drives. They can't trace it back to me." Ethan gave the signal. Windows shattered, flashlights flared, and agents stormed in. Stenton froze, trembling, as Ethan approached him with quiet fury. "You tried to act like the law," Ethan said. "Now meet it face to face," Stenton snarled. "You'll regret this, Marshal." "You and your mutt," Ethan smiled faintly. "You'll be seeing him again, in court footage." As Stenton was cuffed, Ethan's radio crackled. "Marshal, we found one more drive. It's labeled Project Rebuild." Weeks later, peace returned to the neighborhood. The fake HOA network was dismantled. Arrests made nationwide. Karen walked up to Ethan's porch with a small gift, a brass tag engraved with Max's name and the word hero. "From the community," she said softly. "You both gave us our home back." Ethan smiled, crouching to clip the tag onto Max's collar. "He always did the real work." Karen chuckled, then grew serious. "What was that last drive? The one you found at Stenton's?" Ethan looked out over the quiet street. A list of properties they planned to reclaim next. But it's in safe hands now, the right ones. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Max sat alert beside him. Watching the now peaceful neighborhood, the camera slowly panned up to the evening sky. faintly reflecting the light of the stars. As Ethan murmured, "They built a system on fear." But the truth always records back.